Good morning. Good morning. This is Charles Coachman, and this is Coachman on Real Estate. Hope everyone had a great day yesterday, and thank you for tuning in today. We had a little bit of a wild day here in the U.S. yesterday, unfortunately, but they got things settled. They've got things worked out the way they needed to get done. And that is good for all of us. That is good for all of us. Hey, the last couple days I've been talking about sellers and the work that they need to do and things that they need to do to prep their homes for selling and things that they need to understand. But today I am going to be talking about a couple of things that we will look at when you buy a home and things that are happening in the Bay Area right now. And one of those things that we need to look at is, should you purchase earthquake insurance? Now, all of us that live here in the Bay Area know that we have problems with earthquakes here in the Bay Area. We have problems throughout the Bay Area and much of California where we're living on a fault line. And we want to try and address that. Is getting home insurance is obviously something that you're going to want to do, but having earthquake insurance, is that something that you want to do? And that's a question that I think that each one of us we have to ask it. And is it something that you should get? Is it right for you? If you were to pay for your home in cash, certainly earthquake insurance would be something that you should investigate and most likely get, because there's no one that you're going to turn to to help you rebuild your home. Now, your insurance, your regular home insurance will cover an awful lot, but earthquake insurance is something completely different. Now, of course, this has changed over the years. Earthquake insurance used to just be out of reach for everyone. But now it's become a little more affordable. And that's something that everyone has to take a look at. You want to make sure that you are thinking about it. I was taking a look. I am reading an article that was put out by the San Jose Mercury. No, this one was put out by the Chronicle. So I'm referring back to this article, and I'm also going to refer back to a conversation that I just had with a lender a couple of weeks ago on this program. And so things have changed. And one of the things that we need to take a look at, and obviously any of us that own a home in the Bay Area are looking at it very, very closely. What are the policy limits? The amount of coverage that you can buy depends on your insurance company. How much is the deductible? And it's usually 10 to 15%. 10 to 15%. You got $1 million home, so at 10%, that's $100,000. If you're at a total loss, $100,000 that you have to come up. So there are possibilities and there are ways to work around it. One of the things that I discussed with the insurance agent, David Castillo, here in San Jose, one of the things that we discussed was, how do you pay for that deductible? Well, the insurance company will just take it from the amount of money that you're going to pay them. So you're not actually coming out of pocket for that money, which is awesome, because I seem to believe that most of us do not have $100,000 laying around. Of course, in San Jose, a single family home, our median price is 1.25 or $1,250,000. So if you had to come out of pocket for that, it would be $125,000. So we want to think about what we're doing. And earthquake insurance, I believe, is one of the things that Californians really, really need to take a close look at. And as a matter of fact, we haven't had a major earthquake here in the Bay Area since 1989. So we just went over the 30 years on that. Now, they predict that you're going to have a major earthquake every 30 years or so. So we're past that 30-year period. So now, how much tighter does that window become for us? Our folks that predict earthquakes still can't tell us when an earthquake's going to hit, although they are getting better and better. But you have to have your earthquake insurance in place to make sure that you're taken care of. Now, if you want to get your insurance, we know that most of the homes in the Bay Area, they're anywhere from $400 a square foot to $650, maybe a little bit more, maybe up to $1,000 per square foot to repair. So you have to figure that out with your agent, with your insurance agent, to find out if it makes sense to have this done. And I'm going to suggest right now that I would say I will encourage all future buyers that I work with to really consider getting earthquake insurance, because we are in a difficult time right now. We're in a difficult period. We know that our last major earthquake was over 30 years ago, and we know that most prognosticators and those that look at the science say just about every 30 years we can expect a major earthquake. And so if we have the same type of earthquake that Loma Prieta had, now it depends on where it actually hits. Does it hit in an area that's well populated? Luckily, Loma Prieta was up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and it wasn't really in a populated area, although it affected a lot of homes. You have to think about, what if an earthquake hits in a neighborhood? What if it were to come right through Berkeley? In San Jose, we've got the Alum Rock foothills that we know that there are earthquake faults there. What if it were to be centered and it was a major quake there? We have to be prepared. And are you prepared to make that decision? Now, costs of this insurance has been completely different. It used to seem like it was about $10,000 a year to have that paid for, but now you can do it now you can do it for about $2,000 a year, somewhere around there. And of course, you got to go out and get your quote from your insurance person and decide exactly what the best type of earthquake insurance is for you. And do you want to get it? I am going to suggest that that is a yes. So I would say that anybody living in the Bay Area right now ought to be talking with their insurance person and see what it's going to cost them to cover their home in case of earthquake. In case of an earthquake, I think that it's a realistic expectation that we could have an earthquake in the next few years. It's going to damage a lot of homes. Now, obviously, with a lot of homes being built in California and especially in the Bay Area over the last 30, 40 years, a lot of them have already been retrofitted. A lot of them were built in with the securities that we didn't used to have with homes. But new regulations have made builders do that, which is a great thing. And if yours is one of those homes, one of those older homes that doesn't meet the criteria that builders were facing in the 70s through today, you need to take a look and say, do I need to get my home supported? And you may want to call in somebody to talk with them about that. Because having your home supported, modified to take on earthquakes, making your home more stable, that's something that you may want to consider on top of insurance, because there is a lot of damage that can be done. As we could tell by Loma Prieta, again, which was over 30 years ago now. I mean, certainly if you were living in an area like the marina in San Francisco, where everything is built on landfill, you need to have earthquake insurance. You need to have it and be ready for it. And expect that when you buy in a home that's with landfill, you're going to need to insure your home. And do whatever you can to protect your home in the meantime. And then look in, when you purchase a home, look into it to see if it has been resupported. And that's one of the small disclosures that are filled out, and we don't pay a lot of attention to it, but we should. Has the home been supported, stabilized for an earthquake? If it was built before 1980, let's say, you want to have your inspectors tell you that, and then I would call a contractor to find out exactly what it would cost to have your home stabilized. And then again, like I said, and I'm not working for an insurance agent, I just want us to all be smart consumers. Smart consumers when it comes to working with our homes. Most of us, and I include myself and my wife, this home is our major investment. All of our money is tied up into the equity of this home. And I would suspect that many of you are in the same boat. House rich and cash poor. Just not a lot of money sitting in the bank if you had to rebuild your home. So that's one of the things that you need to think about. So that's my spill with earthquake insurance. And I think for anybody listening, that talking with your insurance agent, beginning the talks with your insurance agent, would be a good thing right now. Begin talking about it. Begin to understand what earthquake insurance actually does. Find out what the limits are and take advantage of it. Again, like I said, any new buyers that I work with, I'm going to always advise them that they should look into earthquake insurance. I know it's expensive, but rebuilding your house is even more so. If it costs you $2,000 a year and we have a major quake and your home is destroyed, was that $2,000 a year worth it? Even with the deductible. A deductible that's going to run you anywhere. Let's say at $1 million for a single family home. That's not a real stretch for anywhere in the Bay Area. You're going to lose $100,000. So somewhere you'll need to come up with that money at some point to get everything done on your home if it has to be rebuilt. But what you're paying for earthquake insurance, maybe you'll never need it. That's the hopes, that you'll never need it. But if you do, to have earthquake insurance is money in the bank for you. $2,000 a year, $2,000 a year versus a $500,000 hit at some point. Got to think about it. Got to think about it. So that's my consumer advice for today. And then the second thing is from an article about what's happening with the Bay Area building. What is Bay Area housing? What's going to happen with that now that we've had this pandemic and we've seen a shift? We've seen a shift in how people are working. What's it going to affect? What's it going to affect? This article was written by Daniel Bornstein, and I found it in the Chronicle. And there is some great information, just some great information. And so there's a lot of things to think about. So it starts out saying the Bay Area housing, job market, and transportation could be radically reshaped now that employers and white-collar workers have discovered the enormous potential of working remotely. So think about that. I'm a realtor. I'm working out of my home. But people that had been engineers or are engineers and a lot of different jobs you're now being able to do it from home. And there are several companies that said, hey, you can make that transition to working from home. We're not going to penalize you. Make that decision. So a lot of people are spreading out, whether they're going to go to a further reaches of the Bay Area or whether they're going to move out to the Valley or even move out of state because they don't have to get into the office building. What is that going to do? What is that going to change? So here's an example. Early in the pandemic, Twitter announced that its employees could permanently operate from home. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg foresees half of his workforce doing the same. And Google is exploring a permanent hybrid plan that would allow workers to split their time between their homes and the offices. So, what does that do? Now, there are some big plans by some of these companies. Google in San Jose has been buying up land for years to build a huge complex in San Jose near the San Jose Arena, the Shark Tank. So in that area, there is going to be, at some point, unless they decide to change their plans, like I said, they've been buying up homes and land, property for many years just so they could build this complex. And I don't know if people understand what the complex is going to be like, because there's going to be a main building that people will work out of, and then there's a lot of housing projects that are attached to it. So people, and myself being one of them, have sold homes based on the news that we had been given that, hey, this home is for sale. It's very close to the Google property. So you want to make sure, hey, if you're going to be working for Google, or if you're an employee of Google and you might be transferring to this campus, here we are, we're only a mile away. Buy it now. And we've sold an awful lot of properties that way. For years, large-scale remote work has been an idea that employers and their workers toyed with. Now we see that it can be done, that the economy continues, that life goes on, says Russell Hancock, president and CEO of Joint Venture Silicon Valley. There are wonderful new efficiencies that we didn't realize. For years, large-scale remote work. Let's get this going again. Hancock, who has friends who have moved families during the pandemic to North Carolina, Colorado, and Hawaii, while keeping their Silicon Valley tech jobs. His organization is trying to figure out the magnitude of worker flight. It's by no means, the article continues, it's by no means limited to tech workers. Lawyers, accountants, computer programmers, and even journalists are discovering that they don't need costly commutes to offices to get their work done. And their employers are finding that they can recap or reap a large savings as a result. So how many office buildings, how much is that going to affect what's going on in San Jose? All these places up the peninsula towards San Francisco. What's that going to do to those office buildings? What's that going to do to the many campuses that have been built around? I've got a theory that a lot of them are going to be converted over to condominiums, a lot of office buildings. Now, that could be right or wrong, but I think it would be easier to convert than to rip them down and start over. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what's going to happen. But there are going to be a lot of buildings, I believe, are going to be open. And maybe they just do it on some top floors and keep the rest and have a commercial and living combo. That's going to take some ordinance changes, but they'll have to take a look at that to keep our downtown still alive. The potentially massive paradigm shift should force regional policymakers to re-examine their housing and transportation plans, and builders to consider ways to repurpose, which I was just speaking of, repurpose vacant office space for badly needed residential housing. Again, I was just talking about that. And I have been talking about it since the pandemic started, and we started seeing some of the changes that were being made with how people are able to work. And that's one of the things that we're going to have to take a look at. How large and lasting the shift will be is uncertain, but seems clear that the Bay Area housing and commute patterns could be disrupted for years to come and perhaps permanently. With fewer commuters and less freeway congestion, a larger portion of those who remain are likely to opt for the convenience of their cars rather than public transit. So this is one of the things that we have been spending billions and billions of dollars on, is to make sure that we have BART able to circle the Bay. Now we're tying it in with the transit system here in San Jose and tying it in with Caltrain so that we can circle the Bay. We have opened up several stations from Fremont into San Jose so that we can tie all that together so it's closer to those that are commuting. And we built a lot of communities around those stations so that they were cost effective and people didn't have to get in their cars at all. We put billions and billions of dollars into this, and now they may not have the passengers to feed everything. I can use one example. My daughter, she hasn't went to work in San Francisco except for a handful of days in the last 9 months. And normally she would be using BART every day. She doesn't live next to a BART station. She'd drive a couple miles instead of driving 25 miles into Fremont. But now there's no reason to commute at all. And they're not sure how long that's going to take. How many companies are going to be going through the same thing? So that means transit agencies such as BART, AC Transit, Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority will have to rethink their long-range ridership assumptions and adjust the budgets accordingly to account for post-pandemic world. We'll be going back to different, says Randy Rentschler, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's Director of Legislative and Public Affairs. The question is going to be a lot different. With the financial win-win for companies and their employees, the new work paradigm already is affecting the office and housing markets. How much is it affecting? And we need to understand that. So take a look at it. And I just want to finish up with a few more pieces. The vacancy rate for housing space, vacancy rate for office space increased during the year ending October 2020 for the East Bay, San Jose, and especially San Francisco. Prices have dropped in San Francisco, while the cost for much cheaper space in East Bay and San Jose has held steady, at least for now. So think about what's happening. I'll read the article, a couple of paragraphs. Meanwhile, rental prices for one-bedroom apartments in November compared to a year earlier were down 23% for San Francisco, 20% in Oakland, and 15% in San Jose, according to analysis from the Bay Area Council of Economic Institute. Prices for condominiums in San Francisco have dropped, and resale inventory has soared as urban dwellers have figured out they don't need to stay in the city to be close to their jobs. At the same time, East Bay suburban single-family home prices continuing to rise, aided by incredibly cheap mortgage rates. So what's that going to do for the Bay Area housing? We're seeing that California is losing people every year. Every year, we are no longer growing as a state. But this pandemic is going to hasten that move. Because if you don't have to work in the state, why would you stay? When you can move to other areas that are less crowded and you can get a bigger home for your buck. So that's what a lot of people are taking a look at. But remember, there's still a lot of people that want to live here in the Bay Area. An awful lot. So keep that in mind. They may not be losing or using the transit systems as much as been predicted, because it had been predicted that we may not be able to carry everyone on transit the way they had planned. That doesn't appear to be the case at this point. And we're also seeing companies leave. This is another thing that our legislators, our state legislators, our city councils, our county governments are going to have to look at. In the past couple of months, electric car maker Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced that he was moving to Texas. Hewlett Packard, Oracle, financial services firm Charles Schwab, and pharmaceutical distributor McKesson Corp revealed plans to locate their headquarters from the Bay Area to the Lone Star State. So we've got to start facing that. We have to understand what this pandemic has done and help to push along what's going on with businesses in California, what's going on with the way that we are going to live, what is it going to do to our housing and transportation. We have to think about that. They're all related. The Bay Area after the pandemic will be quite different from the region we lived in before. And I found this to be a very information-filled article by Daniel Bornstein. So those are things that we have to think about with real estate right now. If you're looking to buy a home, if you already own a home, should you have earthquake insurance? And what does work look like for you in the future? Hey, this is Charles Coachman with Coachman on Real Estate. And if there's any questions that I can help you with, that I can answer for you, I would sure like to be able to do that. I've got a little term that I've been using for about 10 years. The buying and selling of real estate is a team business, and no team is complete without the coach. If we can help you in any manner, reach out to us. Reach out to us. And hey, before I forget, there's a realtor in the Bay Area named Steve Noble, and it's his birthday. So happy birthday, Steve Noble. And if it's your birthday out there, happy birthday to you. I wish you a great day. I hope that you enjoy your day, and I hope that you'll join us again tomorrow on Coachman on Real Estate. Have a great day.